the playlist here at Rum Runner. But I'm going to leave the main area because we'll get done for copyright, I'm sure. Talk to you today from the bar. Hello. Oh dear, I'm not framed very well. There you go, here I am. So I wanted to talk today about music selection because a few people have talked to me about it and says how much they like the music selection, and you know, it's different to the other bars, and you know, how do I choose the music in the bar? So first thing to point out is really go over my backstory a little bit, and my backstory is that I was DJing when I was 9 or 10 years old. I was always interested in music, and when I remember being a very young child, you know, one of my first memories was of my mum doing the housework before I went to school, so I must have been like 4 or 5 years old, and she had the radio on, or the wireless as we called it, and she would be listening to Jimmy Young on Radio 2, and we listened to music, and there was always kind of pop music on in the house, and so I've always been taking that sort of on. Now I was 4 or 5 years old in the early 70s, and people say that was the golden era of pop music, and they'll probably be right. I think in 100 years time they'll still be playing songs from that era, but I digress. Later on in life, after my father died, my mum kind of remarried, and his 2 daughters, grown-up daughters, were going out with DJs at the time, and I kind of got interested in DJing. And so, long story short, I've been programming music for dancing, and then on the radio, and then for lap dancing girls for most of my life. I mean, for the vast majority of my life. So I don't know a lot. I can't really do much, I'll be honest with you, in life. You know, stick me under a car engine, I haven't got a clue. Try and change the tyre, I haven't got a clue, right? Stick a shelf up, don't ask me. But if it's to do with wiring up speakers or music, I kind of know that. So it's kind of my specialist subject. That's the first thing to remember. So with that in mind, what about, here we are in 2025, the bar. The concept I had was to play music that was different to what the girls were used to dancing to and what people were used to listening to, because let's be honest, when you go to go-go bars in Pattaya, most of the time it's going to be electro, kind of hip-hop, remixes of songs we've heard before, but they're considerably faster, and basically hip-hop stuff for the girls. 1 or 2 classic rock songs thrown in there, maybe Bon Jovi here and there, but that's about it. I used to go to TQ, Tahitian Queen, quite a lot. Kind of like the music there, but I thought TQ had it wasn't perfect. One of the things about TQ was that the music was off DVDs. I think the DJ was very, very talented and clever, and he knew his music, but he used to play DVDs, and so there was sometimes live versions of stuff which wasn't that good, and then they wouldn't really blend into each other. You get a fast song and then a slow song and then a fast song, and it didn't really work out right. So what I wanted to do was to get a playlist, and the most important thing about a song is not necessarily when it was released, who the artist is, but it's all about the BPM. And the BPM is beats per minute. When I was a DJ and mixing using vinyl on my Technics 1210s, right? I used to buy like a 12-inch single. I used to work in a record shop, and I used to get free records. And the first thing I used to do in the top right-hand corner was either write with a pen, or if it was, like a vinyl 12-inch cover, with Tipex or whatever it's called, correction fluid, I think, in the United States, I used to write the BPM, and I used to work the BPM out literally by getting a watch and counting the beats per minute, how many BPM it was. There was a magazine out later on in my career called Mixmag, and Mixmag had all the BPMs because there was some guy who used to review all of the new tunes that came out, and he put the BPM in there. So sometimes I just used to copy off that, but I used to literally tap my foot, and I used to count to a minute how many times on the BPM. And for a girl to be able to dance to a song, it might well be a song that she's never heard of, and she will complain to hell. And if you come to the bar, you will hear the girls moaning that they don't like the music. And I understand, right? I expected that from day one. I even did a video about it, right? But it is at a BPM where she can, if she is clever and a little bit talented and creative, she can dance to, because it will be BPM around 110 beats per minute to about 140. So in that spectrum, if the song is like Bohemian Rhapsody or 10cc, I'm Not in Love, right? It's a great song, they're great songs, but the girls can't dance to them. And there has been some kind of educational institution that has actually done a report on this and come to the conclusion that if you have a BPM in your bar or nightclub of a certain speed, people will drink more, and because it's a better atmosphere and it just gets it going. So 90% of the songs are rejected because their BPM is wrong. It has to be around about between 110 and 140 BPM. First thing. Right, moving on. What kind of music is it? I then look at, and what we're trying to look for is classic rock, what I call soft rock, 80s kind of pop music, but not too cheesy, if you know what I mean. And something that I put in quite recently, well, the last month or so, which is disco, right? And I'm kind of looking for stuff that other bars wouldn't necessarily play. So for disco, for example, I'm not playing, I keep on saying this song, poor old Gloria Gaynor, I Will Survive. I mean, you hear it all the time. You hear Night Fever all the time, right? But some of the more diverse disco songs, all disco is about 120, 130, 140 BPM anyway. We'll stick them in there, and you've probably heard them. And when you program music, when you hear people in the bar, you talk to people in the bar, and they say, do you know, I haven't heard this song for ages. It's a huge compliment to me, because it means that I'm doing my job. I've given them a memory of their past. They're doing something different, and the bar's a bit different. It's a bit, I hate using this word, cool, because it's playing songs and you haven't necessarily heard them before, and or for a long time. Sorry, not you have heard them before, but not for a long time. And that's great, and that's what I'm kind of aiming for. So we then get into actual songs, artists, most stuff like ZZ Top, I don't know, Billy Idol, all the ones you've heard. They're all in there because even though they're a bit cliche, they're a great BPM and the girls can dance to them. Robert Palmer is another one. It's all in there. Queen is in there a lot, but I'm not putting in the slow songs, you know. I'm putting in songs that are kind of foot tappers that you can dance to. And again, has to be within that 110 to 140 BPM. So I'll just throw a load of songs and into a playlist and stick it onto the software that I use, which is called Virtual DJ. I use Virtual DJ. There's lots of DJ softwares out there. First of all, it's really good at handling videos. You get other DJ software like Tractor DJ, I think Serato. They're all great, right? But in my opinion, Virtual DJ handles video better. Also, what I would do, I remember about, as soon as I got the sound system up, about 2 weeks before we'd open the bar, I started compiling a playlist. And I just threw 400 songs into a playlist, right? And here's the magic, right? You then press a button in the playlist, the BPM, and it puts them all in BPM order. So it will start from about 105, 110, and it will then run all the way down those 400 songs, and right at the end of that playlist will be songs that are very fast, 135, 140, maybe even quicker, right? And so what happens then is the songs just flow better. They flow from one to the other. It's the same sort of pace, it's the same sort of beat. Gradually, as the evening's going on, it's getting quicker and quicker. Right. What I then did is literally, as I was coming in every day, first thing I did, went to the computer. This was before we opened. Turned on the computer and started listening to the playlist and thinking, can a girl dance to this? Does this good? How does it actually sound on the playlist? There are songs that sounded great on the radio 40 years ago, but you stick them in a modern sound system and they don't sound so good. They sound a bit tinny. They haven't got much bottom end or bass or something. And so they'll get rejected. And you gradually whittle. Yeah, I don't think that one really works. Whittle them down. And then you've got a bass, what I call a bass playlist. Really important. I then saved that playlist in the cloud. So what happened on one of the days early on when we opened was that the computer totally crashed and I had to reinstall Virtual DJ, and I lost the playlist, and so I had to start all over again, but I'd already saved it. So we then got that bass playlist, but then every day I am getting requests from customers. Could you play this? And one or two times I say, look, that's not. There was a guy who wanted a hip hop track yesterday, and I had to say, no, sorry, it's not what we play, And do you know what? He was really nice about it. He was really, really nice about it. He understood. But you think, hey, yeah, that's a good song, and that gets put in a playlist. Another thing that I do is when I go for a walk in the daytime, like in the morning when I wake up, right, I'll put on something like YouTube music, and I'll play a song that I know we play in the bar. And then what YouTube does is it uses its algorithm to suggest the next song. And the next song will be maybe the same artist, maybe the same era, the same BPM, that BPM, beats per minute, right? And you'll think, hold on, and I'm walking along, getting me 10,000 steps in, and I'm listening to that song and thinking, you know what? That's a good song, that is. And YouTube has recommended it, right? I've usually heard them before, but some I haven't, right? And I don't know whether there's some kind of human interaction in the suggestions that YouTube puts in its algorithm, or whether it's all done by AI. I think it's probably a mixture of both. So anyway, I will then screenshot that song, come in here and download that song, and it will be in the playlist. And there again, I'll listen to it, and if it sounds good on the sound system, if the girls like it, whatsoever, so on and so forth, then I'll stick it in. So you can't just get a playlist and leave it. You have to mix it up a bit. Sometimes I take away songs for a couple of weeks because I'm sick of hearing them, and then I'll put them back in again. And I'll be honest, there's a few songs that I just like listening to, right? Because it's my bar. So I'll leave it in because, it's my bar. And that is how we curate the music. Always will listen to suggestions. A lot of those suggestions that come out are usually stuff that's too slow or is a bit cheesy, if I can say that, but we'll always consider songs to put in the playlist. That, ladies and gentlemen, is how I compile the music in the bar.